is serious. When you talk about using cameras, is deep, is deeper than you guys realize. And I heard someone say, you open that box up. Are you prepared? What's to come? You may have a great idea, the chief, about what he wants to do with this, what the city council wants to do with this, but what if in 3 years we get a new chief, we get a new mayor, we get a lot of things? Will they come with the same thing? And I'm worried, because when I heard you say that policy hasn't been written, that's dangerous. That should have been written. If we're going to vote for that tonight, we should know what we're doing. This is dangerous. We got to really think about what we're doing. I see a lot, and I don't know if y'all ready. I don't think that jail can hold what I see when I'm downtown. And the people that are doing things, I'm concerned about black and brown people, but the people that are doing things, they don't look like me. So I hope that campus is ready for what this is going to do. But it's a trust. We got to trust that if you do this, you're going to do right by it. But I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Hello, Jean Mahale. I live on Martin Shore Drive in the 4th Ward. I attended the policy meeting that Chief Jones and the police put on at the Molly Bowden Center recently. And I listened to Chief Jones say several times that this system is event-driven. And a number of the police officers were enthusiastic because it would increase efficiency. If it is event-driven, that means something is either happening right now, it began in the past and it's continuing, or it is completed. It happened in the past completely. And I don't understand how a reactive tool is going to prevent proactively crime. I don't understand how that works. This is my 3rd or 4th time asking the question, based in part on the work that Susan Mays and I have done for the bail fund. How will implementing this system change patterns of policing for different groups within the community? And I understand from the representative who spoke, from the vendor, that they will not divulge the names of all the communities, and yet they tout 130 or so that use this system. I find that troubling, and we could come up with some really good information fairly quickly if we just had the names of those communities. The 3rd thing I want to say is, again, about technology. This is going to cost about $100,000 a year, and you've budgeted, you're proposing 3 years. It's $300,000. And in the current iteration, you will buy the portion of the package that does not have facial recognition and it does not have other enhancements. But what if you get in a year or 2 and you think, it would really be useful to have that. After all, we've spent $200,000. Once you've made an investment, it's so much easier to make the next increment and the next partial increment, until if you stop, it's an admission of defeat and it feels kind of crummy. Don't start. Don't do that without information. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Good evening. I'm Valerie Shaw, and I live in Ward 2 on Hillsborough Drive. And I just really wanted to comment, first of all, to make it clear, especially to my Ward 2 councilperson, I am 100% in favor of Fusus, and believe that it will be a tool that will help, not necessarily to prevent crime, but help to resolve crime more immediate. So if that is the case, if that's true, and I believe that it is, it could prevent possibly future crimes, because a suspect might be apprehended faster, and therefore, if this was someone who was going to prevent or going to do crimes in the future, we might be able to really address those more quickly. The footage that we're talking about today is available right now I'm a former manager of a building in downtown Columbia, and we never, and I hardly ever use the word never, we never made the police go through the process of getting a subpoena to look at our film footage. If they came and told me that there was a crime, typically not in our building, but these were outside cameras that they wanted to take a look at, the footage to help resolve an issue maybe at another location across the street or whatever, I always made it available. I didn't make them get a warrant. The other thing, so Fusus will make the film that we already have available more quickly. And quite honestly, privacy is a thing of the past, almost. I mean, I'm no one, and I bet there's 2 pages on Google about me. I'm amazed at what's out there. And so there could be people filming this whole thing tonight with their camera on their phone. People who live in apartments downtown, somebody mentioned that, there are cameras right now that are capturing that. So what the thing that the police is asking is, it's event-driven. So if there's an event and they contact, well, they don't have to wait until Monday morning when the business opens, if that's the type of business it is. They can immediately go to that film and take a look at it and hopefully identify this suspect. I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment.
My name is Peter Spots, and I'm in the 4th Ward, and I'm opposed to this. I want to briefly echo what people have said about especially the slippery slope idea. We don't know what form this could take moving forward, but one of the things that's most concerning to me is how this works organizationally, and I'm concerned that I don't know what measures of success or particular milestones there are for this large project. And so where does the buck stop is one of the questions in my mind. I don't know whether the CPD has complete ownership of this or who has the reins on this as it moves forward. And I also want to say that I'm really delighted to be in this room full of so many people who care deeply about the security and safety of our community.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Hi, I'm Michelle Beatty, and I own a business on the Business Loop. Technology is a must in every industry. We use it to attract and keep good employees, to streamline costs, but most importantly, to be proactive in our services. As a city, I believe we should support the city staff and be productive in public safety by supporting Fusus. We need policies and procedures when handling this technology. I have faith in the department and in the council that if other cities can take this approach for public safety, we can do it and do it in an equitable way for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Laura Gutierrez Perez, Ward 2, and also a member of the CPRB. I'm here to ask you to vote no on Fusus. CPD has yet to provide data showing the effectiveness of Fusus and its ability to prevent crime. If anything, there are still so many questions that have been left without answers. It is concerning that some of our leaders who we should be able to trust have written in support of Fusus with such little data. Although Chief Jones claims that our version of Fusus would not have facial recognition, it is hard to trust that considering that the Fusus website says that it has the ability to do that and so much more. It is also hard to trust it when Chief Jones claimed the traffic stop data did not necessarily show a racial disparity to the CPRB, when the data very clearly showed a disparity against Black and Indigenous residents. CPD hasn't been given any real incentive to deal with the racial disparities that the data showed. I'd also like to clarify for the NAACP representatives that it was actually in the November 10 Columbia, Missouri article where Mary Radcliffe said during the session that she was in favor of fuses, so I imagine that's where many people heard of their support. I read the draft policy submitted by the police department about fuses, and it was so poorly written that we should all be offended that they felt comfortable submitting that to you all. CPD claims that a goal of utilizing this platform is to build community trust, and I do not see how this would build community trust. Currently, CPD can access cameras, but they have to go through due process to protect our privacy and to prevent abuse from CPD. As some of you know, I was a dual language social studies teacher, and although I'm no longer in the classroom, once a teacher, always a teacher, and I understand the fear of active shooters. I had to do drills with my students regularly in a classroom that did not have a working lock. I had to move my students from one room to another during drills, and I know what it's like to not have resources in the classroom. Fuses will not keep us safe. What will keep us safe is better resources for schools, teachers, children in our communities, such as healthcare, food security, affordable housing, and those are the things that will help in preventing crime if people have their basic needs met. When are we going to move from reactive and short-sighted actions to actually fund the services that people need instead of throwing all this money to the police department with no accountability?
Thank you. Next public comment.
Hello, my name is Sarah Johnson, and I am co-owner of the Basement Reef. I'm also on the Downtown CID board. I was the only one to vote against Fusus. First, I want to say that questioning our leaders and police departments is one of our fundamental freedoms and one of the most patriotic things we can do. We know that cities started implementing cameras with live feed functionality downtown in 2011, but how many cameras does the City of Columbia own? How many are working? And how have they prevented or helped solve crimes? We should have this data. It's been over 10 years. Much of the talk surrounding Fusus has been a concern with residential cameras that will only have access to the Fusus registry and not the Fusus core that allows the police to view live streams. Has anyone considered downtown residents? Tucked between businesses, there are many doors to upstairs apartments and windows above shops that will inadvertently be exposed to surveillance. If a residential door is picked up on a business camera, can that footage be legally used under the policy, or will it go against CPD policy or procedure? Fusus Tips is, quote, an easy-to-use soft safety utility that operates via text message. Members of the public can unanimously submit multimedia tips to the police department by a widely publicized number. Fusus Tips rely on suspicious activity reporting by citizens. Public record requests have shown that people of color often end up being the target of suspicious activity reporting. In Los Angeles, an audit by the LAPD Inspector General found that 74% of suspicious activity reports were filed on non-white people. Suspicious activity reporting does not meet legal standards under the Fourth Amendment. According to the Fusus website, Fusus AI incorporates large data sets and dynamic analytical models. This includes, quote, people, vehicles, visual descriptors, and much more. The Fusus platform comes preloaded with dozens of search and analysis variables and profiles that are ready for action. The site goes on to say Fusus AI goes beyond manual search parameters by automating detection capabilities. Users can set alert profiles, and when a match to the search parameters appears on any camera in the designated area of interest, alerts are automatically triggered. Fusus describes itself as, quote, continuously evolving with its database of profiles for search and analysis updated by the Fusus team weekly over the air. What do these data sets look like? What do they include? If Fusus updates are sent weekly, will procedure be reevaluated weekly to ensure equitable use? Fusus and CPD repeatedly deny facial tracking, but object tracking and people tracking can come with the same harms. AI learning is discriminatory and will cause harm in our community. A lot of these technologies operate based on presumptions. They allow public and private sector entities to disguise their discriminatory practice with these similarly neutral systems. And
Sarah, come to this microphone. That one seems to, thank you.
I wonder how well you guys have read all of these Fusus documents. If nobody here has noticed the sections and pages missing between pages 9 and 10.
And we're out of time. Thank you. Next, public comment. Yeah. Can you turn up to this one, just to be safe?
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Al Plummer. I live at 1901 East Northwood Drive. From what I've heard here this evening and what I know after living 78 years on this planet, we've got a lot of work to do, some of which is in your control, some of which is not in your control. But I don't need to tell you that. However, what is troubling to me is we're asking, in this case, our police force to build a secure and safe environment for us all. But yet we continue to challenge giving them the tools to work with. I would urge you to support this measure because our police force needs the tools to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. You can use that one now.
Good evening. I'm Scott Wilson. I'm an attorney downtown, office at the corner of 9th and Ash, resident, home on South Garth, but I'm here tonight on behalf of the Downtown Leadership Council as the chair. The DLC, the Downtown Leadership Council, is your advisory council regarding things downtown. We have a much broader, more broad representation than just the CID. We have representatives from the University of Missouri, Stevens College, Columbia College, neighborhood representative, and our territory covers west to Garth, all the way north to the business loop, so into the first ward. The DLC has had a lot of discussions about violence downtown. Following the mass casualty event in November of last year, another one on New Year's Day, and then last month, the Friday night of homecoming, which we all know about. Aside from those, downtown has seen a rise in violence and violent crime over the last few years that we believe has risen to a crisis point. And we are talking about Fusus addressing violent crime, not just crimes of poverty. Fusus is not supposed to be used for crimes of poverty, and I don't think it will under these parameters. Aside from those, we've asked for increased police presence downtown. We understand the limited resources of the police department and that every police officer downtown is taken away from the rest of the city. Back in July, the DLC had a live presentation of Fusus, and we asked a lot of questions about it. One of the important and the first gateway questions was that this is an opt-in system, permission-based. The city is not taking cameras from private businesses that don't allow it. It's 2022. There are cameras in every public space. There are cameras in almost everyone's hand. That right to privacy is not a right by the Fourth Amendment. If you're out in public, you've given up that right of privacy. At our October meeting, after weighing many of the concerns addressed tonight, particularly that this application of Fusus will not have facial recognition capability, period. The Downtown Leadership Council voted unanimously to recommend the purchase of the Fusus platform.
You're at time unless you were representing. Did you want the full 5 minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry, 2 extra minutes. I didn't catch that at the beginning.
We discussed many of the concerns voiced tonight, although not all of them. But the DLC took those into account, and the fact that this simply allows the CPD to access that camera footage much quicker than they otherwise would in the weeks following a violent crime. Every hour spent tracking down that video is an hour that a police officer could be engaged in community policing. Personally, as both an attorney and a member of the ACLU, I think that the very limited scope of this application is why I'm in favor of it, because it allows police to respond better to violent threats as they happen. All of the concerns addressed tonight can be addressed in the policies and procedures. Weighing all those benefits against the concerns, the valid concerns tonight, with proper policies and procedures and follow-up and accountability, we expect that Chief Jones will hold CPD accountable, and we expect that this council will hold Chief Jones accountable. I'm not opposed to a CCOPS ordinance being passed, which I think we could do in the next 6 months. Given all of that, the DLC believes that Fusus will benefit Columbia with this very limited scope, and we urge you to authorize the purchase for at least these first 3 years. Every single poll of every citizenry that I've seen lists
Right,
public
Scott,
safety
thank you
as
for
the
your time.
number one concern.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Eugene Elkin, 3406 Range Line. I did attend both public meetings. I was only wanting to see the new facility on North Range Line. Unbeknownst to me, Ms. Ratliff and Ms. Shaw, as well as myself, did not know where that building was that was being talked about on television. We all know there's been a new police station, but we have not advertised the name of it for some strange reason. And was it supposed to have a community room? Was it supposed to have a gymnasium? These points have been brought out to me tonight. Throughout the entire meeting, I have been very educated. I was on the fence with this. I want safety for the police officers as well as the citizenry. I do not want to see a repeat of Ferguson. I do not want anything that would involve Ferguson's crowd that showed up as a result of, hey, we've got the facts. Wait a minute. Anything that's not 360 in the viewing of the picture might not be John, might not be Joe, could be Harry. For this happened to me in the last few days. I've been on the east end of town. I keep an eye on my homeless. I came back to the church where I spoke to one of them. I said, you won't believe this. There's a gentleman on the east end of town that looks just exactly like you. This was very horrifying to me because I started to approach that person. I left him alone, realizing I was about to approach the wrong person. Our prisons currently are overcrowded. If someone would keep up with the current jail population, you would realize that other counties send their people here to be placed in our court system. We currently have cell phones that are being made with radiation of 5G and greater. If the public's unaware of the changing of the body organs, then it's time to get to educating. I've talked to you all about educating across the board. You're getting educated, I'm getting educated. Who wants to find out if radiation is going to be behind the new technology we're asking for tonight? I approached him. Is this Ethernet? No one knew what I was talking about. Ethernet would be a Columbia, Missouri only problem, not the world. We need officers and and our public safety, it's been said over and over, what about the future users? And I thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Next public comment?
Jeff Stack, I'm with an organization with the Mid-Missouri Fellowship of Reconciliation. I also live on Sexton in the First Ward. I have to say I haven't had as much time to research this matter as I'd like to. I do appreciate that I did catch wind of it from some folks. We're very much opposed to the funding for Fusus software at this point. It seems like it's really kind of a half-baked idea. There's concern, there should be concern about safety, but I kind of feel that fear is driving a whole lot of things. And I feel like we have spent plenty of money on the police department, way too much, quite frankly, $20 million a year. That's plenty for me. I want to applaud the city council or city manager for passing the measure and purchasing the VFW hall as a shelter for human beings in our community. I applaud that for Room at the End. Those are the kind of policy decisions that I think we really need to try to increase security and safety. We take care of people, we get them off the streets, we give them a safe space to be. Address poverty and other ways I think is more appropriate. My concern is that, people talk about privacy, a thing of the past. I'm sorry, but I really want it to continue to be a thing in our reality. I think about my kids and young people being able to wander our streets and visit, just be able to have conversations. I don't really want to think in terms of living in a police state. And that I think, you guys are being driven by a desire to keep people safe. I think at heart you really are. But I think that we're going overboard with this, at least from what I understand. Other folks have spoken of there really not being a very firm policy developed. It seems like it is, just we should trust that this will take care of us. It'll make us safe. I don't want crime to take place in our community. I want us to try to do what we can to minimize violence. I don't think this is particularly a best way to move forward. We came, some friends and I just came back from a program today talking about Palestinian people and what they're dealing with. A security state, that's what they're dealing with Israeli occupation of their territories. We know about communist China, we know about all kinds of other places. Do we want to get onto a slope where we try to increase this kind of scrutiny and this kind of surveillance? I don't really want to. Privacy, security, we need to have a careful balance, but I think this is going too far. Folks have talked about the CCOPS ordinance, and that may be something that maybe makes sense to think about moving forward. Let's not rush down this road, though. I think we're not benefiting our society by doing so.
Thank you, Jeff. Next public comment.
My name is James Robinette. I live out of town. I used to live here from 1980 to 2013, but I live at 1675 County Road 390 in the Holt Summit area. The reason I'm here is I am concerned about public safety. I do support the request, whether you take it slower or try to achieve more safeguards, but three people got shot downtown approximately a month ago. Outside of downtown, 3 women were murdered. Now I know the system is focusing on downtown, but it also extends the right of property owners to register for participation in the system. But again, to me, the issue of public safety, we have to have a stop the violence movement in our country, and protecting public safety is part of that. And so, because it is the police, years ago when I was here, yes, I did work with citizens at their requests to help to bring about the Citizen Police Review Board. But we have to achieve, that did work to achieve some police accountability, and I think the department is doing a better job. But we have to take a balanced approach in our society. and we do have to do things to help resolve crimes quicker, and we do have to do things like this that will have a deterrent effect. And so we're not going to stop all crime, but if we can have better measures to resolve crimes more quickly, that will help victims of crime, but it will also help to deter those who may think they can come and prey on people and get away with crime. So although I'm not a citizen here, I live in Missouri. I grew up in St. Louis at a time till I moved here in '80, and I lived in an environment in the city where 200 people would get murdered every year. Check the FBI data and statistics. Don't take my word for it. So growing up in those kind of environments, yes, I want accountability, but I also want public safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next public comment.
I need to use this. Does this go up there?
Yes, so there should be, and I think in starting the first of the year, they're not going to let USBs, and there'll be a website to load it up, but it should work. Oh, yeah, no, that should work. Sorry, I thought you were talking about something. Are you representing an organization? Tyree, that's kind of a stretch.
I remember Bob McDavid taking a recess for 5 minutes, and then I spoke for 6 about the same time, same topic. So, but if it's only 3, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm gonna start coming every day, every meeting. I'm coming.
Okay.
How do you open
I
it up?
think you can just do guest mode.
Yes?
Yeah.
Right here?
Nope, bottom, the little blue one. Yep. Yes.
How do you spell Fusus? F-U-S?
Yep.
Is that right?
Correct.
So I had to ask Scott, how you spell it? So I didn't even know how to spell it. So that lets you know that I didn't know much about it. My name is Tyree Bynum. I don't get my address because I got death threats. But what I want to share is I had a couple of conversations with CPD and Jeff, and we actually met for lunch. And this is the meeting. So we met for lunch. You guys, it's black hand side, BLKHANDSIDE/FUSUS. You can pull it up and read exactly what I'm sharing right now and have a copy of it. So we had a meeting and sat down. I met with Jeremiah afterwards. Those are the dates and times we sat down. The Sharp End was a black community. The cops did not come in the Sharp End. They had to ask to come in with a liaison that brought them in and explained the issue, which is why they located where they are, right on the edge of the Sharp End. So it's a conversation, but I talked to the chief. If you guys click on this, this is a Fusus Como map disruptor, because I've already presented, even to you, Ms. Mayor, I presented to you this information about citizen engagement. I sent it to all of you guys. And you said no. I sent it to Carlin a couple times. You ain't even respond to me. So our 10th meeting today and 5th strategy session about community policing, during the time that we met, we said if we not have trust, you won't get no cops, ever. Unless they 45, you can get 45 community policing officers. That's it. We ain't never gonna change that idea. The first time we met personally post-pandemic, our meeting was over lunch. We both shared culture, history, understanding of certain topics. We discussed the challenges. And then we discussed the goal. Sought help from Mizzou to do the additional research, recommended more additional research. It's actually not 4 times, it's 900% more that they pull over brothers than those of European descent. I asked Jeff, why didn't he ask me? And I introduced blackdemographics.com. I'm one of the only black-owned data and intelligence agencies in the nation, the only, and I live right here. You guys haven't asked me for my help one time, and you know who I am and what I do. So Here's the biggest challenges: diversity in hiring, proven data and solutions, effective research that is action-oriented and sustainable, finding trust community partners who are willing to do the work, true institutional collaboration, budget increase, additional officers, officer qualification exceptional, community inclusion, shared social spaces, 18 to 24-year-olds killing each other, right? Gang violence, real or fictional, gun violence, predators and corruption, kingpins. Changing culture takes time. Political climate, protest and counter-protest, police brutality, suicide or prosecutor with those. Here's a list of solutions. I shared this. I shared all the data. I did a report with Jim Witt before the last report that he did for the city. He didn't even get a chance to see it when it was done. I had to show it to him and share it to him since Reddy did not. It had a list of everything you do to change the systemic issues in this community.
Thank you, Tyree.
So you didn't give me the extra minutes?
Oh, did you? Okay, I thought you said I will do it for 3. Maybe add a minute and a half, then move on 30.
So I did the mayor's task force in community violence. I did that pro bono for McDavid and you guys. I've shared with you at least 10 times when none of you knew about the sharp end. I took the time to educate and share that information. I was there when Wine Fay and Almeida, back in 1980, did a whole meeting in the community to educate you guys. In 1996, they did it again. Al Plummer was one of the people who was doing that with Oxenhandler on race relations. All of those recommendations, you did none of them. Even with the recommendations last time, I documented everything. You did none of them, except for one, ban the box. And that's it. And it still hasn't been done. I reached out to the DEI, and I asked Tony some questions. He answered my questions, and so it's right here. So that was one of the recommendations that I gave. But here's the last thing. Galactica died after a whimper after 3 days of intense criticism. Meta trains Galactica on 48 million examples of scientific articles, and after it started tripping, they shut it down after 3 days. You don't know about AI.
All right. Thank you, Tyree. Next public comment.
Can you hear me okay? My name is Ryan Carter. I live in the 3rd Ward. I am representing myself. I am opposed to Fusus. I found out about this today. I read Anthony's document hours before coming here. This is incredibly scary. This is the first step of creating a police state, and I do not say that lightly. That is an incredibly scary thing for a lot of people. So scary for me that I felt I had to come out and speak on this the first time I'm ever coming to one of these meetings. I work for Columbia Public Schools, and I resent that our nation's incredibly lenient gun laws have necessitated a situation where we have to live in a police state to save a few precious seconds to keep our children safe. If we want to keep people, especially children, safe, it is my opinion that stricter gun laws would be the answer to that particular problem. I think that every single person that has come up here in opposition of Fusus has raised incredibly good points. I understand our business owners' standpoints on this making their lives much easier, but the really important thing to keep in mind here is that CPD cannot create a decent policy about how to use this technology without first implementing it. That, to me, is a non-starter. This is not an attack on the CPD, it is a criticism. Speaking as a former first responder, I have a pretty good understanding how difficult and dangerous your job is. Police officers ensured my safety many, many times so I could provide the best care possible to my patients. But your organization is flawed, and this measure is flawed, and I do not think approving technology that creates the framework for a police state under the guise of public safety just so you can test it out, however good intention that idea may be, is the answer. I think that there are a lot of aspects to this that I do not think have been fully considered. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Susan Renee Carter. I'm from the 2nd Ward, and I'm here to represent Race Matters Friends.
Are you requesting 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'll be reading this. Sorry, I didn't have time to memorize it, but Race Matters Friends is against structural racism and the tools that further the project of white supremacy. One of these tools is the advancement of surveillance technology. Surveillance technology employing cameras, systemic analysis of that visual data, and generally opening to the policing force an avenue for constantly watching the people of Columbia offers too many opportunities to further systemic racism. We know from recent publications by the Missouri Attorney General of vehicle stops in Missouri that stops happen disproportionately for people of color, particularly Black people. We know that Black people are likely to be arrested, arrested than white counterparts per an analysis of FBI data. Over-policing is already happening in our communities of color and already causes death and harm to those same communities. Enabling the police to purchase this software only increases their ability to over-police and justify the over-policing. Furthermore, this technology is a violation of privacy to all the people who live in Columbia, and the Mid-Missouri Civil Liberties Association would disagree with some of the comments made by other people and lawyers in that they are concerned that the surveillance software will infringe upon the rights of our citizens. They also noted that there is no independent assessment for the system. We do not have confirmation that this system actually reduces crime or significantly assists with capturing people who have committed crimes. Further, there is not currently an active Citizens Police Review Board in Columbia, meaning that once the police department is able to access the software, there is no clear recourse for oversight. This is too much power to give our police department. The privacy of our individual citizens is a right that has to be protected. When we hand tools to the police that undermine that privacy, we undermine our own rights. City Council is responsible for speaking to the expectations of their constituents. Have you asked your constituents if they are ready for their privacy to be at liberty to be violated? Are you prepared to know what if something happens to your constituents because the police have been able to violate their privacy at their deeming of criminal activity, whatever that may mean? It was on your hands for supporting the placement of this technology. Who will be able to access this information if the police become able to record it? Race Matters Friends does not support the implementation of this software, and we hope that City Council does not either.
Next public comment.
Hi, my name is Chris Jones. I'm in Ward 2 on West Texas. So many other speakers tonight have made so many good points. I'm not going to reiterate them, but I am going to bring up a different aspect to this. Last Friday at noon, I attended where Chief Jones spoke at the Mule Skinners virtual programming. There, the chief said that apartment complexes, the yards, the parking lots, et cetera, would be considered businesses, not residents, in his version of the policy on Fusus. What this means, for those who are unaware, is this means it would be a live feed, not that the police department would text the owners of the businesses or the owners of the residences. They would be able to go into the live feed and watch it that way. Apartment complexes have a disproportionate amount of marginalized and vulnerable people who live there, so this would disproportionately negatively affect them if Fusus was to be considered. The chief also said that people don't have the expectation of privacy in public. I would say that an apartment complex, as somebody who does live in an apartment complex, I should have the right to go out to my car without being videoed. The people who live in houses have the right to go out to their car in their driveway without being videoed and without the police being able to tape it, I should have that same right. However, the police also he said the police also have a right, or the public also have a right to expectation of privacy from the police spying on them without a court order. As has been highlighted by the police, by the vehicle disparity stop ratings, our local police department has a problem of targeting non-white members of our community. This program will only allow them to target individuals and groups more. Policies and procedures will keep, or we've had multiple people say that policies and procedures will keep Fusus from, or keep the police department accountable. However, the police chief has stated in this room that he allows his police officers to turn off their cameras. He said that in this room on tape. And lastly, Mayor, I would like to point out that twice before public comment, you very rudely interrupted a council member, Councilmember Fowler, when she was trying to bring up stuff that was needed to be asked by members of the community.
Thank you, Chris. Next public comment.
I'm going to request, hello. I'm going to request 5 minutes on the behalf of Homes of Harrison LLC, if
Okay.
possible.
Okay.
Pat Fowler, hello.
Hello.
Andrea Weiner, hello. Roy Lovelady, hello. Barbara Buffalo, hello. Nick Foster, hello. Matt Pfizer,
Pitzer.
sorry, hello. And Bessie Peters, hello. I want to speak from experience.
Keandre, will you please say your name for the
Oh,
record?
I'm Keandre Harrison, sorry. I want to speak from experience. I've been pulled over in Columbia 6 times. I've heard people mention how African-American males, African-Americans in general, disproportionately get pulled over more than their white counterparts. And so I want to bring to your attention that I have been pulled over 6 times in this community, and I've never been given a speeding ticket. I've never been given a ticket in general. That should be concerning. It really should. My father has done 25 years in prison. I won't even go into that for a crime that he believes that he did not commit. My brother, Bobby Harrison, he is currently fighting a misdemeanor right now due to the City of Columbia Police Department. So I'm someone speaking from experience. I don't come to you with numbers. These are direct family members. My dad's name is Bobby Harrison. I'm Keandre Harrison. My brother is Bobby Harrison Jr. And so I really think that we need to rethink this. And I think that there could be a better way a better solution that we can come up with. I would recommend that you all take all the feedback from the public and look at your options and reevaluate it and assess it and really think, is this the best way that we can go about helping the crimes within the City of Columbia? I love the City of Columbia, which I do, but I'm not sure if this is the right way to go about it. It is very concerning, especially for the Black and brown community. And I hope that you really understand that. Many of people have brought that up tonight. Please pay attention to that. And something else that I want to bring to your attention is we need to have something in place to hold the City of Columbia Police Department specifically accountable. We need something to hold them accountable. With the 2 minutes that I have left, I have a few things. So Mr. Roy Lovelady brought up in his line of questioning, what level is the city of Columbia committing to? I would like to hear that be answered, because I felt like he was going through a line of questioning, and he was somewhat interrupted, and we never got a chance to really hear that answer. I also want to know the pros and cons of this being proactive, or is this a reactive company? I want to hear from the companies who have used this particular system. I want to know from them, how many crimes has this system prevented? I want to know those numbers. So I think that we definitely, there's some research, more research that needs to be done. And again, start reaching out to those other companies. Start reaching out to Atlanta if you haven't already. I love what Roy Lovelady has said, is that he reached out to them. He's met with them. I'm not sure if you all have, but he has. And he's brought that information back to the public, in which I really, really appreciate. We need more of that. And again, I want to know the numbers behind how has this system helped other companies and other cities. And I want to know the prevented, like how much what's the crime rate now that this system has been put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. But who sat down to wait?
Hey, y'all. Catherine Armbrust, Como Mobile Aid Collective, Ward 2 residents. I'm not going to talk a long time because we're all tired, but I do want to say that Como Mobile Aid Collective has a lot of concerns about how the Fusus system will negatively impact the people that we work with, especially because they don't look like most of the people that have come up here to talk about this issue. And so we urge you, all the wards and everybody up here, to vote no, because it sounds like there are a lot of other options that people are suggesting that could be a compromise, but we just really don't know what's going to happen to our already marginalized population. So please vote no.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public wish to speak? Okay, going to close that part. And now we're on to council comments or questions. Pat, I do want to point out you had some inquiries to a couple people who I'm not sure if they're still in the audience. I think I see Dr. Yearwood back there, but did you want to ask your question while they're still here? But I was going to yield to them so you can ask your questions of them.
I can ask Dr. Yearwood a question, and then I'll wait for my other questions because I have many of them.
Okay.
Dr. Yearwood, it's nice to see you, even under these difficult circumstances. I have been trying to figure out exactly what room I was in when I saw a presentation of the security system that the Columbia Public Schools has and the feeds that are already connected to the police department. Was I mistaken?
I'm not, as far as feeds to the police department, I'm not aware of that, no.
But you already have a connected software system for your cameras?
Within the schools, yes, ma'am.
Yes, and so you have a control room somewhere where you access that, or your security folks access that?
Oh, they can access that, but it takes time because they have to go through and figure out all sorts of things, time, frame, what they're looking at. It typically takes several hours to actually pinpoint certain things that are happening within the school. It's not very fast. It's not a very fast system.
So does Fusus help you as far as the difficulties you're having with your current software system? Does Fusus take those problems away if you connect your cameras to that?
So when we're in the midst of an emergency, it requires a multifaceted approach. And what we're looking at is, yes, we will have our cameras and we'll do our very best, but when we have additional tools to use in an emergency situation, it makes things kind of go faster, smoother, because in an emergency situation, time is of the essence, especially in a life-threatening environment. And so for me, the protection of the 18,000 scholars are my number one priority, and the faster that we can get in and mitigate the situation, the better it is. So again, it requires not just one, but it's really multifaceted because, you know, I'm sorry that there's no magic bullet to dealing with an emergency.
Have you made an estimate about the additional cost that you will have to incur in order to have the appliances to connect to?
My chief of safety officer has made that assessment, but again, we are sort of looking at, we're not sure exactly where, how many schools, how many cameras and things like that. So that is ongoing right now.
So is that fair to say that you're still looking at your own policies of how you would connect to and/or participate in the Fusus system?
Well, we're looking at, yes, policies, budgets, things like that. We are looking at it. But the key here is this another tool that could help us mitigate loss of life? And the answer to that is yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Dr. Yearwood? No. Thank you so much for staying. I appreciate that. There was one other person that you had an inquiry to, but I do not see them. Oh, there. No, is the business owner at the back? Did you want to ask from the first business owner? Sorry, you stayed. Did you?
No, I just wanted to reiterate when she asked me directly that I didn't consider that small
Oh,
businesses
no, is it
were.
the guy? But it's okay if you don't have any.
I don't
fine.
know who you're referring to.
I feel like when you said your name was Bruce. He's wearing a mask. Last row.
Okay.
It's okay.
No, it's okay. Oh, yes. The question that I wanted to ask is, and really we need to ask the chief's gone. Okay. So we can ask the deputy. Oh, there he is. Okay. So I'd like to ask, the gentleman referred to 100% solving rate. I'm not going to use the right words. I apologize for that. It's a vocabulary that I have to spend more time with. But that all of the homicides this year had been solved satisfactorily. And I wanted to ask a question about the nature of those crimes because we've had 9 homicides. Is that correct, sir?
I believe we've had 10.
Okay. And how would you categorize those homicides? Do you have, like, some are in the categorization of they knew each other, it's domestic violence, it was a drug deal gone bad? Do you have any kind of data that you can share with us about those 10?
I believe that 8 of those have some kind of domestic-like component to them.
And what about the other 2?
I don't have them in front of me, Ms. Fowler.
Would one of them be when Kaylin was thrown off the bridge? Is that a homicide?
I would consider that a domestic type.
Okay. So the Fusus camera system, how does that address domestic circumstances when it's your stated intention that you would have a registration system for residential cameras, but that would not be part of the Fusus software? How do we address domestic violence with Fusus?
So I'm not sure I understand your question. I will tell you that the latest homicide that was domestic also in nature was caught on camera. That camera was a residential camera. It was not linked into anything. It was shared with us, and it took us several hours to get that. I believe that would have been addressed even quicker than it was had we had that video sooner.
So when you talked about the registration system where residential camera owners can register under Fusus, but that you weren't connecting them with appliances, I don't understand how that would have been faster, except that maybe you would have known that someone had a camera.
We could have communicated with them directly by dropping a pin, seeing where cameras were in the area, and then sending them a mass notification.
So I'm wondering why we haven't, in this age of technology, already reached out to our property owners and asked them if they would let us know if they have cameras.
So we have done that in the past. It's not updated. That information is stale, very time consuming.
I understand that, but I also understand that that's a possible alternative rather than expending funds and taking staff time to implement a software system that has unintended consequences, to use Representative Weiner's words at the last meeting. And I'm concerned about that. The other thing I'm concerned about, which I didn't get a chance to ask about, I assume that you also, as the police department, also participates in our strategic plan discussions.
Yes.
Do you? Okay. And does your command staff also participate?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking on the pages aren't numbered, Mayor, once again. But I'm on the page that is stated to be Strategic Priority Safe Neighborhoods. And the outcome objectives include build trust between City of Columbia and Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And so as I endeavored to figure out how we could do a policy ahead of time, and I asked you all of the questions about, did you reach out to all of those folks? I'm really troubled by the fact that, given that being our objective, that we didn't have more time for you to talk to other stakeholders in the city. Can you help me understand how that happened?
I can go through what we've announced and where, as far as public outreach. February 22nd, and these are just notes, Fusus initial virtual presentation to CPD. March 28th and 29th, site visit to Fusus headquarters, Atlanta PD, Cobb County PD, with the Fusus team and people from Columbia. May 18th, Fusus demos at North Precinct, morning and afternoon with Fusus reps. Fusus presentation to downtown CID with Fusus rep. Fusus presentation June 15th, North Precinct with Fusus rep. July 27th, Downtown Leadership Council virtual presentation of Fusus with Fusus reps. July 28th, virtual presentation to City Information Technologies, Management Information Systems. August 1st, presentation to Council and Columbia Public Schools IT with Fusus rep. August 8th, Eagle interview with Brandon Rathard about Fusus. October 3rd, presentation at pre-council meeting with Fusus reps. November 1st, Cosmo Breakfast Club. Also, community information meeting, HR training room with Fusus reps. November 2nd, community informational meeting, Molly Thomas Bowden Neighborhood Policing Center with Fusus reps. November 3rd, Fusus rep travels with CPD chief and city manager to client sites in Oak Lawn, Illinois, Gary, Indiana, and Newport News, Virginia is on November 4th. One of the command staff presented to the Columbia Pachyderms presentation. November 7th, KJLU interview, that was over the phone. November 9th, community policing policy meeting, Molly Thomas Bowden Neighborhood Policing Center. November 10th, KFRU Simon Rose morning meet-in, call-in. Also November 10th, Jack FM, Tom Bradley Show interview. November 13th, KFRU Sunday morning roundtable. November 15th, Boone County Pachyderms. November 16th, KOPN interview. November 17th, Boone County Mule Skinners. November 21st, Eagle with Brandon Rathard again, and we're doing the council meeting. On social media, Facebook, we put stuff out on the initial meeting announcement. That reached 8,000, roughly 8,000 people, a little more than that. November 1st, there was a reminder, 4,700 people were reached. November 2nd, 3,400 people were reached. Be Heard Columbia Mo announcement, 3,300 people were reached. Policy and procedure meeting announcement, 6,100 people were reached. Policy and procedure meeting reminder, 6,000 people were reached. Twitter initial meeting, almost 1,700 people. November 1st, a reminder, 1,357. November 2nd, almost 1,700. Be Heard Columbia on Twitter, 1,200. Policy and procedure meeting announcement, 1,800. And then policy and procedure meeting reminder, 2,756.
So Chief, I get those kind of metrics from the folks who help me with my sales and marketing for my company. And my recollection is that's when you have that many people, it means it went by on their feed, whether or not they were watching or not. Is that correct? Or are you telling me how many people clicked on that?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's probably one of those things where it goes by in their feed if they happen to be watching at that time, because they're following you and your pages. So when you listed all of those things, and I very much appreciate it, except we did not have a presentation on August 1. We, several of us were very concerned about it being on the consent agenda, and we asked the city manager to pull it, and it was tabled. But I don't believe we had any kind of substantive conversation. But when you listed all those other places, I thought, I'm a 63-year-old white woman in Columbia, and those are spaces where I would feel comfortable. But I do not see as those spaces and places where people of color would feel comfortable and show up for those meetings, which is why at the beginning of the meeting, I asked you specifically about those stakeholder groups, because I know how much you have been out talking to people and groups. You know, I listen into the downtown CID when there's a Zoom link available, and I just don't understand why you weren't able to give that same attention to these other organizations that are focused on the disproportionate impacts of being black or brown in our community. Can you help me with that?
Ms. Fowler, there is no way for me to reach out for individually to every person you had on that list. I asked for help to get into venues where I could announce that we were having meetings. I was making every effort to do that the best that I knew how.
Well, I think from the comments we had tonight, now I'm going to move into comments
Thank
if
you.
you're okay with that, Mayor. I think
Yeah, I think
that,
everybody has some questions. Yes, I want to make sure everyone gets a chance.
Sure, absolutely. So, but I think that what we've learned tonight is that we've all missed the mark on that. I handed out a timeline in part because I started this process once I learned that once I saw the presentation, thinking we could attend to all the unintended consequences with a good policy. And so for those of you who have a copy in the audience, you see how many times I wrote to city staff and asked for information. And yes, I don't know if Ms. Ratliff is here, but when I got information back, I shared it with 45 or 50 people in the email group, because as I started to collect information and ask questions, more people came to me and I added them to my email group. And by the way, my email is sunshineable at any time, including the email that you sent to me, Ms. Ratliff. So I went through all of these steps thinking that we could find the policy that would take the concerns largely away so we could move forward with this. But then when I asked for information over and over again, what I got was, well, once we have the software in place, we can make a policy. And so I am not comfortable, I am no longer comfortable supporting this software system, given that the policies that you were able to bring to us were far short of the kind of detail that the people who spoke tonight are expecting. Now, I also, fortuitously, I can't believe how lucky I was, I got to go to a meeting with our college students when the Tri-College student governments came together, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. And they shared with me their concerns about they want to feel safe in downtown Columbia. And those three colleges are Columbia College, Stevens College, and the University of Missouri. And I shared with them, I want you to be safe. I don't want you just to feel safe because there's cameras. I actually want you to be safe. And I asked the student government, oh gosh, now my email closed, hold on. I asked the student government leader if they had been approached and what they knew about the possible implementation of the Fusus system. And he shared with me what he could. Actually, we were supposed to have a representative here tonight from the Missouri Students Association, but they're on Thanksgiving break, so they're gone. So let me just tell you what I received from Donovan Moore, and I'm going to read it. Below is the only part of the email chain I have access to, and Donovan is the chair of the External Affairs Committee for MSA. They asked for our support without giving information. We responded that any opinion would have to be expressed in the form of a resolution passed through the full Senate, and that's the MSA Senate. Below is their response. As of now, no resolution has been heard in the full Senate, so there is still no official MSA position. However, several members of the External Affairs Committee have written legislation to echo community concerns on the matter. Feel free to mention my name and title if it becomes relevant. Donovan Moore, Chair of the External Affairs Committee. He had a response from Christian Bassey, thank you. I completely understand and appreciate the need for a thoughtful conversation about this. Thank you for the update. If it's possible to get the resolution completed by November 21st, that particular date is a key day for the Columbia Police Department as they will be presenting to the City Board. Should MSA decide they are willing to support the implementation of Fusus, it would be helpful to have that resolution completed before that day. So they are also in a hold pattern, just as I am, about how we have that thoughtful conversation and develop that policy ahead of time. So again, I put this all together because I felt like the genuine effort was needed to find the policy first. But until we have the policy, I cannot support either the transfer of the money to an account where you could use it to pay for the software or for the software license. If we decide, if the first matter does not defeat the matter for tonight, then I would like an opportunity to ask questions about the software license. I have many. Thank you, Mayor.
So we'll be reading them separately. All right, Andrea? I'll just go last, fine.
But on the line.
Yeah.
Comments or questions?
Well, ask your questions first, hopefully, because, right?
Have any?
You don't have any questions? All right, yeah, comments is fine.
I would say, man, 4 hours. That's what we're at.
I'm aware.
It's really disappointing to see how cavalier we've become about normalizing surveillance. I'd really like to invest in paying more for our co-responders, using the $300,000 to implement some of the things in the Mayor's Task Force on Violence. I don't really want to, I don't know how to phrase it. There was a note, I took note here from, I think it was Scott Smith? Scott Wilson. He said it's not supposed to be used for crimes of poverty. Nowhere in the policy does it outline the types of crimes that Fusus could be used for. I find myself wanting to table this all together until we can put safeguards at the ordinance level out, where we can meet the needs of safety for our community and protect the privacy, where, you know, as Ms. Gowie-Jones mentioned, it's a violation of law, not a violation of departmental policy. I want to get people off the streets so it doesn't happen again. That was something that we've heard a lot of. We also know, we've had this discussion that the perpetrators of crime are repeat offenders most of the time, or a lot of the time, and prosecution seems to be the issue. So it's hard for me to see this mechanism as something that is preventative, when the only access point for it to be preventative is a sticker on a door saying, we have this in place. How are we preventing things there? I would also like to see us look at the CCOPS ordinance that, I read that at the ACLU as well, that Sharon mentioned. We've mentioned it up here as well. I did research, I did watch the congressional hearings. I have chatted with many members in the community, for, against, in the middle. I truly have gone back and forth on where I feel about this, because I don't want to be seen as somebody that's pro-crime, because I'm not. Or unsupportive of our law enforcement, because again, I'm not. What I would like to see is an ordinance that lays the groundwork and the foundation for something as uncharted as where we're headed. So that's my feelings. I would like to have an ordinance in place. I don't think the policy does us enough justice. I think it's small potatoes. I think we need something more foundational than that.
Right.
Okay, so throughout my comments, I might have a few questions, but first I would like to start with everybody. A lot of times it was already said that the camera is already in place, and I'm so glad that you all said that, because the camera are in place. And just like you could opt into this, you can also opt into giving the police officers your footage. Crime is solved that way, and I appreciate you guys who do opt in when they contact you. They're still going to have to contact you if you're a resident in order to access your feed. So still, the process would be slow. So we should take that into consideration. Also, businesses, reaching out to businesses. The first time that I really heard this advertised was when there was a shooting downtown, and they talked about how this could be so supportive of businesses. Well, I am an 18-year owner of a business, and so I brought up to several people up here, how are we reaching out to other businesses besides downtown? When I looked at this list, I wrote down downtown every time that somebody said it. And over half of you all talked about downtown. Well, fun fact is, well, maybe not a fun fact, but just a fact that you all should know, is there has been at least one shooting every week in 3rd Ward. How does Fusus protect them? I also took the time out because I'm boots on the ground. So I went to businesses in 3rd Ward and churches in 3rd Ward. I knocked doors in 3rd Ward to get feedback. Of that feedback, yes, we had some in support, but the majority of them were not. I also brought to council a few people, how are we reaching out to the other businesses outside of the ward? And we weren't. So recently, I said, well, we could reach out to them because all the businesses are registered through the city. We could use their emails. Recently, they started emailing within the past week. So some people have gotten emails, and I reached out to other businesses in like 1st Ward and other wards where some of my hairstylist friends, they didn't get an email. I didn't get an email, but I also work for the funeral home who got an email. I'll reach out to other entities who got emails, but when I reach out to Black and brown businesses, the majority of them, if not all, did not get an email. So wanting to hear from the Black and brown community, I'm so proud that you guys voted me in so that I can sit here and have a seat at the table and actually give you my experiences. So next I'll talk about my experience. I have been pulled over a lot as well. The police officers is not the first person that I call when I am facing some type of crime or because I don't trust. I don't think that this system is building any type of trust. I did not have one conversation with the chief about this one time. Most of the time when they had the meetings, I was at work. So how do I attend these meetings to make sure that if other Black and brown people voices can't be heard, at least mine could? Mary Radcliffe, I did share your email. I don't apologize for it. I wanted to make sure to raise awareness. For the past 3 months, I have reached out to people via my Facebook to make sure I hear other voices. I have reached out to most of the Black and brown businesses that I am aware of in the downtown area, and they are not in support of this. 2 of which I don't even think attend the CID meetings. I could use their names, and a lot of people did give me the option to use their names. 3 churches, none of them are in support. How many people up here actually got out and did footwork to make sure we heard from other people besides downtown? Another thing, the strategic plan says we're going to address things of the city with equity. I ran on a platform of equity. You ran on a platform of equity. Nick ran on a platform of equity. And I know those things because we all ran together. How is this system equitable? How should I feel equal when being surveillanced? The standard operating procedures. We had a meeting with Atlanta on November 3rd via Zoom, where I asked a lot of questions and concerns that I had. I asked for those standard operating procedures. Do you know when I got them? Saturday. I got them Saturday. And I asked several times for them. Data. A lot of people talked about data. No matter how I've looked at this system, and I've spent lots of time researching, I even got up this morning re-going to the wards, to some of the businesses that I reach out to see if they got emails, just to double check today. None of them had received emails for an update on the Fusus system. Businesses along Clark Lane, businesses along Range Line, businesses out on the Demare area. I did a lot of footwork, and I want you guys to know that a lot of people are not in support. And how are we truly reaching this Black and brown community? I 100% want to feel safe. If we put this system in place, how do I feel safe and not watched, attacked, and a fear of it contributing to mass incarceration? I did ask about the core and which the city will be using. So that is one question I would love to have answered. What core will we, as the city of Columbia, be using? There's two on there, and one of them was.
It'd be the largest core on there.
So we're going to be using the largest core?
Yes.
A lot of people talked about increased safety. How does this increase safety when we're responding after the crime is already in action? And you say it won't be a live feed and we have to get phone calls. Well, from a resident standpoint, I still don't feel safe. I don't live near a business. I live in a residential area. So how do I feel safe when you still have to call me and ask, can you access it? Some people talked about the Ring camera. Are we going to be accessing the Ring camera or not?
No.
I know it's been said that we're not, but even the footage from the homicides that happened, that footage came from Ring cameras. So if it was that effective and it worked that fast from a Ring camera, just a question. And then public meetings. I took lots of notes randomly. Okay. Oh, last thing. So you guys, the CID already got a grant to purchase cameras, correct?
Not cameras, you mean the
not the cameras, but the actual box to actually buy into the pores, the cores. What did y'all get?
Would you like to answer the question?
So we had two possible camera grants. One was for just outdoor cameras or outward-facing cameras for our businesses, had nothing to do with this. We are hoping that they will come with some type of flashing light that will go with them. That is something where it's been passed, but something we are still working on. So it hasn't been fully fledged. People haven't been getting the grants. Another one that the board has talked about, not passed, not something that we're doing for sure, was one talking about purchasing or being able to help the businesses purchase the $200 piece to connect it with the Fusus. But again, that has not been passed by the board. Only the cameras to help businesses, or the grant to help businesses buy cameras facing outdoors.
Okay, so again, downtown, who is rich and wealthy, income's flowing, yet y'all get a grant to support and purchase. Third Ward, I haven't heard anything about a grant, and I know we don't have a CID, but you also said you have extra cameras. Had I not asked, you said that, what's the core? The core. I keep talking about cameras, but I'm meaning the core. So, correct, core. The attachment for the cameras attached to. How were you going to distribute those? What's the processing seeing? What's the best place to distribute those so that people of Third Ward can feel safe if we choose to add this as a component or a tool to the toolbox?
We'd look to see where there was the most need as far as crime.
Well, that's all of Third Ward, with the majority. And we haven't been rich in Third Ward. I did the footwork. If I can't do anything else, I can get out and knock doors. Why haven't they been rich? Real question. Why haven't the people of Third Ward been rich, from businesses to HOAs, etc.? This is a real question.
I've sent out emails, done public meeting announcements, social media announcements. It's been all over the news, all over the radio. I don't have people to go to every door in the city.
But some areas we focused our attention and made sure that they got the message, especially downtown.
Do you have any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Let me go down.
No.
Mary, hold on.
My name has been called several times tonight. You don't have that right without giving me an opportunity to speak. You don't have that right, so I am requesting that right. Okay?
Mary, I'll come back at the end. Yes. All right, next one to go.
Okay, deep breath. I do have a couple of questions. One, Chief, if you were to get the funding for this tonight, how long would it take before you'd be able to put the system in place?
It depends on how long it takes to get the procedure finalized and through the city manager, to get people trained, to get statements signed by the officers so that they understand that discipline would be imposed if they violated the rules. All of those things would have to happen first. I'd hate to guess, but it would be at least a few months.
A few months. Well, over and over tonight, I've wished, and I really don't believe in wishing. I believe in doing. But I've wished that a lot of this were a conversation rather than a series of statements, because I question some of the things that have been said. I feel like some of the things that have been said could be helped with additional information, questions being answered, and so forth. But that's not where we are. I only today was introduced to the idea of a CCOP, a Control of Police Surveillance Ordinance, but that's appealing to me, and I think part of the reason that it is that I think we have an opportunity with this system perhaps being put in place, but with the opportunity to address the possibility of an ordinance that can kind of be an umbrella over any policies and procedures, then we can do something that places the parameters around this in a way that is within the code and not just simply a matter of policy. So that's why I asked about how long it would take, because my sense tonight is that I really would, in whatever way that's best done, to ask law to look at other such ordinances and to draft one for use in Columbia, so that we have that kind of legal oversight as to how it's used. I hear the concerns for people about a lack of information. I hear the concerns that people have about how this will impact particularly people of color and others that are marginalized. At the same time, I have come to the conclusion that I would feel good with having this put into place. My hesitation at this point is just being sure that we have the policies and procedures, or we have the ordinance that will help us to feel comfortable about that and help most of the community feel comfortable about that. Not everyone is going to, and, that's okay. But what would be the process by which we would review a possible ordinance?
For the CCOPS, the discussion about that, it would be basically when y'all making a motion to make that request and getting the favorable consensus of council for it. The question is whether or not to do it at this time or continue this discussion that we're on right now and then have it follow up.
Okay. Then I'll hold off for now.
Matt?
It's been quite the 4+ hours now, but I appreciate all of the conversation, and I appreciate all of the comments that everybody's made. I think that one clarifying moment for me was recently in late October with an incident at a school here in town. And I know that that's been brought up a few times. And one of the speakers said, what we really should be focused on if we are concerned about school events are stricter gun laws. And however you may feel about that, the reality is the state that we live in and the country that we live in now. And so anyways, there was a report of somebody potentially armed at a school, and so what the police do in that situation is there's a massive armed response because of everything that's happened. And just reading from the press release here, as school security was unaware of the student's location, multiple officers were dispatched to the scene out of an abundance of caution. After responding, officers were able to locate the student within a matter of minutes and determined that there was no weapon or threat on school grounds. But they don't have the option of not responding with massive force. And so, when I hear about what happened that day from the kids, my kids who are there, it's, there are all these heavily armed officers patrolling the school campus. And that is not something that anybody wishes for, obviously. And that's something that we're all doing whatever we can to prevent within the confines of the laws of the state and the country at this point. And this is something that would help in that type of situation where they know what they're getting into and they know how to respond, and they can respond more, as it turns out, more appropriately. I don't mean that there was an inappropriate response because, like I said, you have no choice. But respond in a way that doesn't further traumatize the kids in some way when they have all these heavily armed officers, like I said, roaming around the campus. So for me, that was like I said, a clarifying moment and if there's, something that needs to be done in the interim, I think that, that is, okay, sure. I don't know what those steps are, but I think that this is, an opportunity for us to, address some of the real legitimate, concerns that are in the community.
Betsy?
I would like to thank all the people that have shown up. It has certainly been another long public hearing, but I appreciate everybody coming out and sharing their concerns or their opinions. My feeling is that it's not going to stop crime, but it is going to help solve it. It might, that's the whole idea, is to see what's happening and see what we can do to stop it, or if you can't stop it, which you probably can't, see who actually was the shooter or see who actually caused the problem, see if you can find it. There is the opt-in and opt-out, so businesses and homeowners have a choice as to what they want to do. As far as starting downtown, I think it's because the CID probably started with their concerns about, all the business that they bring downtown, especially after dark and after people have been drinking. And they're the ones who are really the impetus to start this. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done in the 3rd Ward or the 2nd Ward or any other ward that, has cameras, that have businesses, that have people that would like to be more secure. So I appreciate you bringing up, Roy, that, you know, there's more than just the downtown for the businesses. And I think that that can certainly be looked at. And for those businesses that would like some help, they can be helped. So, you know, I would recommend that we, well, I'm certainly going to vote for it. I would certainly recommend that we not table it. Please vote for it, vote against it. Either one, I think we need to move on. And if we then want to look at another option, that would be a possibility too. The only other thing I would say is I would like to see, if this passes, a report every 6 months of exactly what we, you know, how often it has been used, what it's been used for, who's actually accessed it, whether it includes names or not, but just how, what officers have accessed it and why, and what we've learned from it. Because if we don't seem to have data from other cities, we can certainly generate our own if this passes. So.
Thank you, Betsy. Before I have, so, and I think listening to Pat, probably have called roll on the first one for the piece, then moving on. The one thing I did want to say, and I'm also, not only that we had so many people speak, but that so many of you stayed. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Because you asked them to.
And I think we heard a lot of items today, and I think it's important to point out that regardless of how you feel on this issue, you have a lot of very community-centered, focused people here that are passionate about their community and one another. So thank you, and I hope you hear that from one another. We heard also a lot of conversations about systemic issues. And we know that it takes a strategic, but also a thoughtful and collaborative approach to those systemic issues. And it's not just one bill, one software, one thing will solve it all. When I look at this, and I come from my father was a criminal defense attorney. And one of the things that he always talked about was that he always requested to see video. And the purpose was because then it prevented any false arrest. A lot of the conversations tonight were about potential false arrest or that sort of profiling that we've heard discussed before. So that's where a lot of my questions were asked of staff beforehand, and I appreciated the reach out and the opportunities like Roy requested or mentioned about how we got to speak to other cities and what they had done. So I will appreciate that, and I think, Nick, after the vote on this, if you or Andrea wanted to make the motion on the CCOPS, I think you have a lot of potential support for exploring that option. So I'm going to ask Sheila to call the roll on B 32622, and then we'll have the discussion or call roll on R 19122. I'm also conscious over the time, and it is almost 11:30. So after this, I'll probably take a 5-minute recess for people to get up and stretch their legs, and then we can go on. And while we do that, then we can do the reading of consent and intro and first read. So Sheila, will you please call roll on B 32622?
Council Bill 32622, Ms. Buffalo?
Yes.
Ms. Fowler?
No.
Ms. Weiner?
No.
Mr. Lovelady?
No.
Mr. Foster?
No.
Mr. Pitzer?
Yes.
Ms. Peters?
Yes.
All right. So if that bill failed, does that mean that we still do R 19122? That's maybe a question more for Nancy.
The appropriation failed.
Without the appropriation, there is no reason to move on to the next one. I mean, if you want to, for Sheila, this is really more of a question for you because legally it's either way. But to close out your records on it, do you need a vote?
I don't know that I need a vote, but maybe a motion to withdraw it or something, since it's
I think
a
it's
dead
the same.
issue.
6 of one, half dozen of the other. I don't know what you need.
I'll move to withdraw the resolution.
Okay, and I second. Or vote. You can have it. You can own that. All right. All those in favor of withdrawing R 19122, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Okay. Capture the no's were Matt and Betsy.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew, do you want to make that motion now, or Nick?
Well, I have a question before that. I said that I essentially support the use of this. So can this be brought back to us again?
Could be brought back again, but you're going to talk about another 2 to 3 hour public hearing.
That's my question too, because we couldn't amend what was in front of us to say yes, but. Which is essentially, I mean, I can't speak for Nick, but that's kind of what my thought was too, is I would be supportive of something like this if we had this bigger ordinance in place.
Why don't we start with the bigger ordinance in place, and then after we have collaborated with our community, including Black and brown people, to write that, we can then look at data and figure out what the next right tool is for making our community safer. And there are other options on the table.
And let's go, just quick comment here. For this one, so it would have to be different, obviously, right, Nancy? Because this was just an appropriation. So it does not have to be substantially different.
Correct.
Okay. So yes, it can come back at a later time, but did you want to make the motion for a request for a CCOPS resolution to come?
Sure, yeah. I make a motion that we direct staff to bring forth a ordinance in the spirit of the CCOPS ordinance from the ACLU regarding surveillance technology in city policies.
Second.
All right.
Consider an amendment, Councilperson Wayner, that includes a step of collaboration in bringing forward that ordinance. Because I think what I heard tonight was we want to have a discussion about it in a meaningful way and be part of the process for setting up a potential ordinance that would protect us.
Sure.
That's what I heard. So I would just, if there's collaboration in there, I am good with your motion.
So the motion is to bring back a CCOPS resolution with the incorporation of community collaboration in
the formation of it.
In the formation of it.
And
Sheila has a clarification.
I understand you're okay with that. Nick, you seconded it. Are you okay with that?
Well, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm not sure what that means. What I had in mind was that, legal, this is in their bailiwick as to the writing and the provision of ordinances. I'm not sure what collaboration looks like in the writing of law in that regard. Do you hold a public hearing about what an ordinance ought to look like? Do you call an interested party's meeting? I don't know what that looks like, so I'm a little hesitant about.
But I suggest that we might not want a resolution then, perhaps, based upon the fact it's 11:35 at night.
Yes.
Could we maybe think about this and bring a resolution back on another
You want to request a report to come back on what we could do for developing a CCOPS resolution and the community engagement that might be needed?
If it's a formal strategy and plan of how we'll do that, sure. I would prefer to vote on something and have a plan in place, because we like to kick things forward because it's late, and I get that. I want to go home also. But that's, my comfort level is to vote on it.
Okay, so you have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other discussion on what is on the floor, which is for having a resolution come back?
And this is a resolution.
Resolution to create a CCOPS
I'd just
resolution.
say legislation.
Legislation.
Because
Okay.
it could be an ordinance or a
Right.
Legislation on what?
Legislation to create a CCOP, Community Control Over Police Surveillance Program, or
And it's not clear to me if the collaboration is part of this or not, because Nick seconded Andrew's.
Again, I don't know what that looks like.
I'll withdraw the collaboration piece in understanding that we'll have a public hearing or something with that's coming forward.
Exactly. That's the way I understand
we've
it
had a
would
lot
be.
of input this evening. Too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a report would be better then, rather than
well, that's
a
what she's saying. She'd
resolution,
rather
Sean?
resolution to vote on.
Or
Can I
legislation.
make a comment? that,
Legislation.
Nick, I think that's the problem. We don't know what collaboration looks like.
Well, that's another
Right,
conversation.
and we have a motion on the
That's
floor,
another
we have a second. Any other discussion before we vote on it? Okay, Sheila, will you please call roll on the motion?
Hold on a second.
Oh,
Is there- you gonna
discussion.
You want to put a timeline on that?
Yeah, Andrew, do you want a timeline? Sorry.
You want to put a timeline on that?
On how quickly to turn it around? I mean, how quickly can it be written? There are sample ordinances out there that exist and have been put in place, so that's a starting point, but I don't want to say, give it to me tomorrow. I mean, real life, that's what I want, but.
Yeah, we're gonna need to, we haven't even researched it yet.
Okay.
Right.
And so, I mean, the first I've heard of it was this
This
meeting.
afternoon, yeah.
And so, let us research it, let us understand it. We can bring something back, but it won't be, within a month. It's gonna take time to actually research and understand exactly what it means and what the impact.
Does this give you enough direction on,
I know what I know what you guys are looking for, and
Okay.
I've actually, I think the mayor sent me the email that you guys received, and so I've actually been looking at different communities that have it. I looked at the ACLU's comments on it, so.
And I sent some stuff to Barbara last week or the week before about it too.
But let us kind of pull that together and kind of do the research to really understand exactly what an ordinance would mean for the community.
Okay. So the motion and the second that we have on the floor is to have this come back. We're unsure a little bit on the timeliness, so we'll just be checking back in because of what
What was the
takes.
language you used in some of the earlier stuff, as soon as?
At the first meeting available, or like as soon as, what did I say? There were words.
It was boards
like
and
5 hours
commission. It
ago.
was boards and commissions. You said as soon as, immediately available or
Possible.
possibly available. That's my
Words.
timeline.
Yes. Okay. Sheila, will you please call roll?
Yes. Okay, on the
Great answer.
motion on the table, Ms. Buffalo,
Yes.
Ms. Fowler,
Yes.
Ms. Weiner,
Yes.
Mr. Lovelady,
Yes.
Mr. Foster.
Yes.
Mr. Pitzer,
yes.
Ms. Peters,
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes, so we'll have a CCOPS resolution coming back to us to review, or legislation to review. I've got this right. Do you all need a 5 minute, or you want to keep going?
Just keep
You want to keep going, because you want to keep going?
to the bathroom.
Okay, you can go to the bathroom, we're good. All right, Mary, well, hold on, let me get her reading through consent, and then we have public comment up next.
Oh, of course, I'm so sorry. Yes, I can wait.
So Sheila, will you please read the items on the consent agenda twice and to call roll?
Yes, items on the consent agenda include bills 31522, 31622, 31722, 31922, 32022, 32122, 322 22, 32322, 32422, 32522, and resolutions 17722, 17822, 17922, 18022, 18122, 18222, 18322, 18422, 18522, 18622, 18722, 18822, 18922, and 19022. Bills 31522, 31622, 31722, 31922, 32022, 32122, 32222, 32322, 32422, 32522, resolutions 17722, 17822, 17922, 18022, 18122, 18222, 18322, 18422, 18522, 18622, 18722, 18822, 18922, and 19022. Ms. Buffalo? Yes. Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Ms. Weiner?
Yes.
Mr. Lovelady?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Pitzer?
Yes.
Ms. Peters?
Yes.
Thank you.
For own first reading. And then Climate Environment Commission.
Oh, sorry. All right, moving on, we have no new business. Now I ask Sheila, we're on to introduction and first reading. Sheila, can you please read the items under intro and first reading?
All bills are introduced by the mayor unless otherwise indicated. Bills 32722, 32822, 32922, 33022, 33122, 33222, 33322, 33422, 33522, 33622, 33722, and 33822, first reading.
Fabulous. Okay, well, let's move on to reports. The first on the agenda is Report 9222. Do we have a staff report on that one? I think it's you, Leanne.
Good evening.
Hello.
Council members. I know it's a late hour. I'll be very quick. My name is Liam Tippett Mosby. I am the chair of the Climate and Environment Commission. And I just wanted to draw your attention to the materials at our October 25th meeting. The CEC reviewed the report that had been presented by the Columbia Water and Light to the Water and Light Advisory Board, and had some feedback on that, and that's the memo that you find in your materials. The timing of this was the October 25th meeting, obviously, was before you made your decision on the extra study that was going to be done. I think there was some question, I heard through the grapevine, there was some question about whether or not the commission was requesting that the council reverse their decision on that, but I would point out that our memo was before the decision was made, so that would not be possible. But I would just say the upshot of our memo is there were some concerns about the report and the necessity of it, but the upshot is we still very strongly support the 100% renewable by 2030, and would request that the council move forward with that. Because we believe that there is documentation of technical feasibility out there through the IER and MP. And that's the conclusion of my testimony, unless you have any questions.
Awesome. Is there any additional questions that we have for the chair of the Climate and Environment Commission? No? Do you need any direction from us?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Leanne. I appreciate it. Thank you for staying. Okay, up next, we have Report 9322, which we had the chair from this already provide input, so this is basically information only, and I think he has already left, so I'm assuming we're moving on. The next one we have is Report 9422. This is our Comprehensive Homeless Services Center Planning Report, final report from the project, and I see, do we have a staff report? And I do know that there is a work session set, so
Yes.
feel free to save some.
Yes. Rebecca Rosslett, Assistant Director, Public Health. This is the Comprehensive Homeless Services Center Planning Report. We wanted to provide it to council in advance. It's a pretty thorough report. We want to give you plenty of time to have a chance to review it. There is a pre-council work session on December 19th, where the community partners that were involved in the development of this plan will be available and can present on the plan in more detail. But we're happy to answer any questions you might have tonight.
Any questions in the interim until we have our work session for staff?
I'm just happy that you got this to us now so we can read it, since
Yeah.
it does take a little bit of thinking about it and reading it, so thank you.
Nick?
I just want to say good job, well done to all those who are involved. I know there's been a lot of work in the background of this for a number of years, so it's exciting to see it get to this point, and I'm excited about what can happen moving forward. So thanks to staff and all those who've been involved, and social service agencies, CHA, everybody. It's well done.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying. All right, up next, we have our report 9522. This is the Business Loops Community Improvement District's end of fiscal year report. This is just information only for us to accept. Were there any questions for us to share with their chair or their executive director? Seeing none, we'll move on to report 9622. This is the quarterly report from the Water and Light Advisory Board. I know that this is something that their chair indicated they will start sending to us. So this is the first of their quarterly report. I don't know if we have anybody here. The chair is not here. Any questions or comments on this one that we want to share and provide back? No, just appreciate it. I don't know, Dave, if you had anything to share, if that's good. Okay. Moving on, report 9722 is our monthly financial report. I don't know if we have anything from staff or any questions from council on the monthly financial report. You do?
No.
Oh. Go on. All right. Moving on then, our final report is amendment to the fiscal year 22 annual budget, the interdepartmental transfer of funds. Unless you have anything to share. All right, it's okay. Any questions on the interdepartmental transfer of funds? Seeing none, we will move on to, we're done with our report section. We're moving on to general comments by public, council, and staff. So would any members of the public wish to speak? 7:45.
Mary Ratliff, 211 Park DeVille Drive, President of the Columbia branch of the NAACP. And I rise because my name was called several times tonight, as was my organization. So I'm here to defend my organization and to defend my name. In the first place, the NAACP is 112 years old. We didn't get here by being complacent. We didn't get here by allowing people to walk over us and to disregard us as if we are not here. And to Mr. Lovelace, I helped you get elected too. You represent the ward that you represent. I helped you get elected too, okay? And to Pat Fowler here, who continues to say that she's representing the African-American community, we helped her get elected in the ward that she's in the past, okay? And it wouldn't have happened without our intervention. I'm just want to say that the NAACP, the first thing to say is they killed Martin Luther King and crucified Jesus, so I can take a little, yeah, I can take some lumps and some bumps. I can take it. But I'm not going to sit here and allow people to downplay the NAACP. The NAACP represent the black folks in this community, and I'm sorry, I have white friends, but to say you represent black folks in this community, you do not represent. And I also hear that you went to churches, etc., to talk to people. I also went to churches. I went to the beauty shops. I went to get my nails done. I talked to black folks over there who are in support. There's a lot of black folks out there who does not understand in any way how anybody could vote against such a measure that would help make our community more safe when all of our folks are getting shot and killed, dying everywhere, and we're not willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that we are doing what is best for our community. So I want to just say, I just wanted to just let you know that we, the NAACP is here, and I know there are haters. I know that I don't represent everybody, not even in the black community, don't pretend to. But folks pay their money to belong to that organization because it is an organization of African-American folks who has led the fight. I didn't see any of these folks out here when we were out here doing the voter registration drive for the month, you know? And so we represent, the NAACP represent the African-American community, and I want you all to say that I don't appreciate when my name is being called up here and I am not able to respond to it. That is not fair for anybody, okay?
Thank you, Mary. Would anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Hey, beautiful. Shonda Hamilton, King Street. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for the previous public comment, so I did not get an opportunity to say that I was for the cameras. So I just really quickly, because I don't have a lot of time, I know. So I moved here in 2008 with my children from St. Louis, and I moved here because I thought it was a safer community. I attended different meetings here, even though I had 4 children, 2 sons. My sons weren't in trouble, but I was here for the Stop the Violence initiative that you guys had down here. I was active in the community doing those things because I wanted my children to be in a safe community. I moved them from where we were at. So my daughter was killed here in 2019, and there were cameras that they really were not able to really get a good view, but they were able to kind of depict, you know. Anyway, so we went through that whole, my family has went through this whole trial, all of this situation, and the judicial system here also is, in the city of Columbia, Boone County, I won't say is always necessarily the best either. I work with a lot of people who are victims and who have families who have been murdered here. And so I speak on behalf of myself and for them too. My daughter, we have someone that was convicted who is getting ready to be up for parole November 30th of this year, and next week. But I have people who I work with who they don't know who killed their family members, who their loved ones. They suffer a lot because of that. And we know that a lot of people don't like to talk if they have information. So that's one of the reasons why I am for these cameras. Because if these cameras could, I hear a lot of people talking about, all the problems that it's going to cause. But what I don't hear people talk about, it's like the victims that live here either, who don't get anything, who don't get any type of justice, and it just happens and it's done. That's what I don't hear. I don't see, I was really active in the community. Last year I had to step back a little bit because all I ever hear is this group over here has a problem with these people. These people have a problem, with this person, and no one is getting anything done at all. That's all I ever hear is arguing the reasons why we shouldn't do this, reasons why we shouldn't do that. And we still have our children continuing to be murdered here, and nobody is doing anything about it. So if you guys have this collaboration, I hope that you guys can get together and actually act like adults and work it out and try to figure out how to actually make the community safe for the entire Columbia. Not just this section or that section, but for everybody. It's not going to stop happening. There's nothing happening. You guys are fighting last year. We talk about this whole cure violence. How come we can't come up with a simple solution for prevention? All kinds of cities are having it. Instead of anybody trying to do anything at all, we never get anywhere because everyone's always arguing about everything. No one can come up, like I said, from 2008 to 2022, and there's been nothing except for more children murdered, more families suffering, and the victims being completely ignored. That's all that's been happening. That's it. So I only have 20 seconds left, but that's what I just want to say.
Would anyone else from the public wish to speak? Would anyone from the public wish to speak? All right, going on to council comments. I guess it's up to me first. One of the first ones is that we talked about at our last meeting, not requiring our first meeting in July, and we realized we need to actually make that something to come back for us to vote. This was the discussion for the July 4th, because the July 4th holiday, about at the end of the meeting, Betsy made a motion to not have the first meeting in July. So in order to make that official, I would need a motion for an ordinance to be introduced at the first meeting in December for council consideration vote at the second meeting in December to not require the first meeting in July.
Okay, so if you only want to do this year, I think you can do it by motion. Nancy can correct me if I'm wrong. But if you want to do it permanently, then it takes an ordinance change.
Okay. Question? The question is whether or not we want to make it as an ordinance so that it's every July 1st meeting, and obviously a lot of the discussion would happen at the time of this voting, or is it just for this upcoming July?
I thought it was just this July.
Okay.
The timing of the holiday.
Of when it was?
Yeah.
That would be fine.
Is the city planning on giving that Monday off to their employees?
No, the Tuesday is
Not
what's
the
off.
Monday, we actually get the 4th off, which will be the
I
Tuesday.
know, but our meeting's on a Monday, not on a Tuesday, so we wouldn't be on the holiday.
Right, the request was just, this was at the last meeting.
I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the request is just that a number of people like to be gone, take not just that day off, not the Tuesday having worked Monday, but would take that week off because it's summer. So I'm just asking if people want to not have that meeting, the first July meeting. Otherwise people have to be in town and then travel on the 4th or not go out of town on the 4th. So it was just a question. If people feel they want to be here on Monday, they can, but it seemed like a reasonable thing, and over the years, it always seems like it's a problem. So that's all I'm asking. So I would make a motion that we make the 3rd of July, that we not have a meeting on the 3rd of July in 2023, so that people can have.
Do we have a
longer
second
4th
before
of
we have
July.
discussion? It is, the July 3rd is the Monday.
Second.
All right, seconded by Mr. Pitzer. You have a clarifying question, or you have a question?
Well, I just have a comment. So I can see doing that to benefit city staff so that they can have extra time with their families, because then they could have a 4-day weekend if they wanted to take a vacation day. The only concern I have is what if we have something pending that is important in the community, and we will go from, there goes my calendar again, darn it. We go from the 19th of June all the way to the 17th of July. So if there's some way that I guess we could call a
You can always call it.
special meeting,
Yep.
whatever.
And we have a
So-
date in place.
Okay, so I do support it because I think it's a great idea to give that option to our city staff.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of having an ordinance come back to us, introduced to not have the first meeting in July for 2023, say aye. Aye.
Need an ordinance to come back,
Or a
Nancy?
resolution or whatever.
No, you just have, all you needed was a vote for this one. If you want it to occur
Okay,
more permanently, like,
that's a conversation to have later.
that's another
Okay,
conversation.
all right, so then all those in favor of not having the first meeting in July on July 3rd for 2023, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have one no. That's fine. You can do that. All right, so we will not have a meeting on July 3rd, 2023 from majority. I had other things on my list, but now it's kind of lost. Betsy, you did have a couple of things that you brought up. Do you want to bring them up, or do you want me to bring them up?
Gonna bring them.
Do you want me to bring
in
them up
order? I
for
don't
my
care.
time? I'll make sure you do when it comes to your time. All right, Pat.
Yes, I first want to address Shonda's concerns. When I hope Mr. Seawood remembers this, but when he arrived as our deputy city manager, I went into the side room and spoke to him and asked him if he would be willing to sit with the families who have lost family members to gun violence. Because I knew from the amount of exposure that I had to families and concerns, that it's something that haunts a family every day. They constantly have sorting out in their head, what could we have done differently so that our family member would still be with us? And from that point on, I increasingly started spending time with advocate organizations, trying to push the issue of there are data-driven strategies in use in other communities to address community violence, just like there are 14 or so recommendations in the Mayor's Task Force report. So I understand her pain. I don't have any experience to share that deep level of pain, having lost a child to gun violence. But she's right. We just keep kicking the can down the road. For some reason, we're uncomfortable engaging over the kinds of community outreach and community violence prevention programming. I've heard several times that our police chief expressed his concerns without being specific, and that has successfully halted the conversation several times. So why don't we take this opportunity to move forward on that initiative and have some thoughtful conversation that includes members of our public, and we talk about the strategies that do have data to back them up on how to decrease violence and to keep our community safer. So I would like to see that happen. I know that Mr. Seawood sent out an email. I got it on October 27th, and you all got it a couple days later, about Dr. Gerard Tate. Well, I think that perhaps we could spend some time working and moving that along. I talked, new subject, I talked to Mr. Seawood today about the no USB policy and asked if that staff report explaining it could be rewritten to include, and this is where Sheila needs to pay attention, because whether or not we currently have a way to hold on to and archive with our other meeting materials those things that people bring and upload as presentations. And I remember you saying that if they give me a copy, I have it, but if they don't give me a copy, I don't.
That's correct.
So I would be interested in knowing what the steps would be once the.
But I can't archive a digital thing.
So what do you need to do? So you need a paper copy so you can put it in the record?
Or if it's provided to me digitally, I'd have to print it. But that's a lot of extra work. So
Yeah,
unless somebody hands me document, that's the best route to do that. And
So-
I would put it with the ordinance or resolution
And then
and
when
keep
I
it permanently.
search, if I remember how to search
Come to the
correctly, I can
microphone,
click
Pat.
on it, correct?
Pat, come to the microphone.
Oh, sorry. So I would like us to revisit that policy so we make sure that we're retaining those things, whether or not we have to advise the public, like, here's the upload place, and then bring us a paper copy or something, so that we know that we have that material saved as well. I also wanted to ask a question about how the recording of spaces inside City Hall works. So in what spaces are we recording not only video but also audio?
I don't know what you mean.
Like for meetings?
No. So when, this is about, Miss Davis, that example came to mind because she came in and she was upset when they asked her for her social security number and her password. And I sent you that information and you sent me something back that said that you, or city staff had observed the video. And then you recounted the things that Miss Davis said. So that had to have an audio recording.
Yeah, we have a video system in our cashier's location that's, for protection of our staff.
And it's video and audio?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So do we also have a policy that when we know that the audio is running, that we don't ask our customers or ratepayers for their password and their social security number?
Sorry?
So she was asked for a password, and then she was asked for her social security, the last 4 digits of her social security number, which got her greatly upset because she had an ID that she showed the person. But all of that, you explained all of that. But the part that troubled me after the fact was we recorded asking her for her password and her social. I'm concerned about that.
Are you saying that's not secure?
But it's so, right, but those measures are put in place to protect our citizens. And so we don't want anybody to just come in and access someone's information.
Sure, I understand.
And then the recording part is also there to protect our citizens and protect our staff. It's the same thing that you would have if you went to a bank or you went to another location where you're passing cash or you're dealing with something like that. Those videos are there to protect. It's not something that's accessible to the public. But for auditing purposes, if we have someone who says, this occurred and I felt like your staff person was rude, it's great to be able to have a video to come to take a look and see exactly what occurred and what was said and what wasn't said.
I think I want to think why, I'll come back with some more thoughts about that. It bothers me that the audio, I don't know how else you would do it. I understand the point of video and audio taping, those kinds of transactions. But it left me uncomfortable that she was asked for those 2 things on an audio tape. So I'll think about it and bring that back again. I zoomed into a meeting with the Business Loop CID last Monday, and because they had many concerns about pedestrian safety along the business loop and traffic improvements. And I think Carrie and maybe Mr. Griggs, the Dave Griggs Flooring America, said that there was a working group that was forming or had been formed. I'm looking at the other Mr. Griggs. Is there a working group with the Loop CID for pedestrian and traffic improvements? You meet every couple of weeks and talk with them?
It's not so much about Mike Griggs, Deputy City Manager. It's not so much about the pedestrian and traffic safety. We've been starting meeting regularly on other issues in general, not just that, but like with the homeless, some of the problems that we've had with some of those. Yes, we've been meeting with that. We've had our first meeting probably about a month ago, I'm guessing.
So as the first ward representative, how could I best stay informed about how that's going?
Well, since it's our first meeting, and so we just really got started, It's kind of like we've been looking at topics to have going on. They're usually during the day, on weekdays, to accommodate whenever some of their businesses can meet. So it's usually early morning sometimes. But we could certainly let you know when they are, and I can work with Carrie
So are you
Gardner.
doing this in person or are you Zooming it?
In person.
Okay.
Usually we've met it there at the old Parkade Plaza.
Pat, we're now at 12:05.
I understand. Okay, hold on.
I know, but some of them sound like questions you've already asked of staff before earlier in the day. I just want to bring it up because I know we have 5 other people to talk.
So, I want to ask one more thing that came up during this discussion about Fusus. I had more than one person say to me, have you heard, are you listening when the downtown officers say, call my cell phone? And I said, yeah, that does bother me because it doesn't appear that call to a police officer gets recorded if they call the officer's cell phone. And I just wanted to bring that up since we're going to be in a collaborative process about how to keep our community safer. Thank you.
Okay. Andrea. Roy?
So, first off, I did not say thank you for voting me in, and I want to verbally say that. Also, I want to make sure that the constituents, I understand that I get not a lot, but some emails that say they watch me on council. I want you all to know that you can feel free to email me at ward3@como.gov, but also feel free to call me. I currently do not have office hours, and if you would like to reach out to set up meetings, I will always make time available as long as it's not my work days. So reach out to me at 573-810-1965. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. One thing before, just a comment you made earlier, I realized, DeCarlin, we might want to make sure that our business contact information for emails is up to date. I don't know if that's the sort of thing that we audit to check that it still works, but Roy's comment.
I've had the same one since high school.
Okay, Roy's is working. So you know what I mean, just to make sure on that, just those comments about, we thought we had reached out and then didn't, but, and then just wondering about the audit.
Yeah,
And then
check on that.
do you want,
Well, one other thing, and then several of us, Roy, Barbara, myself, and Betsy were in Kansas City this past week for the National League of Cities annual meeting, which happened in Kansas City this year. And I was very impressed with the NLC. We spent a lot of time in meetings and got a lot of stuff crammed in our heads and still have a lot to do to process that. But on one evening, Betsy and I had the opportunity to be present when our IT department was given an award of recognition for excellence in the work that they do through Digital Cities, which is a part of what happens at NLC. It's not the first time they've received an award, but it was really fun to be there and to see them to receive it and to get a photo made with them. So kudos to those folks for the good work they do. And then we've talked about not meeting in July on that first day. I want to raise the possibility that we might not meet also in January. That date would be on January the 2nd. So that's been a conversation as well. I'll put it in the form of a motion that we not meet on January the 2nd and have only one meeting in January of 2023. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I would second that for discussion.
My discussion for that would be we might need to ask the staff or ask DeCarlin to check and see if we could really do that. Because remember, we have some public hearings where then we have to vote on it in 2 weeks. There's timing
Carlin, what do you
things,
know about that?
that we need to let the staff know far enough in advance that planning and zoning things are appropriately taken care of.
Yeah, so I talked to Tim Teddy earlier today.
You did, and what did he say?
And so we won't have anything that will be up for passage on the 3rd. And so actually the meeting should be the 3rd, not the 2nd, because the 2nd we're closed because of the holiday. So our meeting time would actually be moved to the 3rd.
It's actually the 3rd.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And so the other thing that we were worried about is if there's any type of ballot initiative that we may have on. So one of the things that we would have to make sure we do, and I think we'll be able to get it done, is if there is a ballot initiative for the April ballot, we'll have to have it read the second meeting in December and pass the second meeting in January, which I believe we can do that, but those are the things we need to be looking at.
Right. And so I think one of my other discussions was, and this is something that I know we've talked about for years, actually, is the first meeting in January, the questions around it. And a big thing that we've often heard is that because there's not students in town, there's also less usual coverage from some of the issues. And so I know that there had always been that discussion about whether or not there's as many people to actually witness proceedings and come to council on that one. I do know. Other discussions or comments? Okay, so this seems like a Sheila call roll on this one.
On the motion about the January 3rd, 2023 meeting, being canceled, Ms. Buffalo?
Yes.
Ms. Fowler?
No.
Ms. Weiner?
No.
Mr. Lovelady?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Pitzer?
Yes.
Ms. Peters?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll not have a meeting on January 3rd, but also have the opportunity for if something is needed, we can call it and we have a date and we have a location. All right, so Nick, you're done? Are you done? All right, Matt Pitzer.
I'm good.
Betsy.
Sorry, I have a list.
Yes.
First, I noticed that there was a press release today saying that there's a bus route that's going to go to the VFW/Ratty Center starting on the 28th of November. So I wanted to thank whoever's responsible for that. I'm going to start with the city manager and whoever else. So thank you. That is a great help because that's always been a big issue of how they get there. Second, I would ask that we pull 33122, which is on the consent agenda for first read, or it's on first read, would normally be on the consent agenda next meeting. Pull it to old business. It is a replat over on Hinkson Street over in Benton Stevens, which is your neighborhood, Roy, but it's like East Campus. So it's a replatting. And then I would ask if we could move that, and you'll have to do this at the next meeting, someone. Move it to December 19th because I will not be here at the next city council meeting. So that's 33122. So I'm just letting you all know about that.
Yeah, and we'll make the changes to the agenda, but we do need to make a motion to move it from consent. Is that correct right now? No, we can just do that at the time? Or it will say, am I right, Nancy? On the printed agenda for the next one, it will say council recommends tabling until December 19th, so that the public know.
Or council intends to table?
Council intends to table.
I mean, do you intend to table?
Yes, I think there's support of tabling so Betsy can be there for the vote on December 19th. She will not be at the December 5th meeting.
Can we not just do that now?
We advise the applicant?
This is, so I think Tim did, is that correct?
I'm not sure.
Or,
It would be in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean,
it would be in 2 weeks, but we're requesting to table it for an additional 2 weeks. And the staff will advise that, you're saying, can we just make that?
Change it now?
Really?
I,
Hi, Tim.
We need to do it at the next meeting.
You can't, you actually have to do it at the next meeting.
Okay.
What we like to do is bring it up at this point to ensure that if there is the consensus of council, or if council's willing to do that, we can put it on the agenda for that public awareness, public notice. We don't want people showing up and having to come back multiple times. So, Tim?
Yeah, you're talking about the Hinkson.
Yes.
Plat. Yeah, we'll inform the applicant that it'll be on old business and that it'll likely be tabled for
Okay, thank you.
Which sort of brings up the Unified Development Code and the RFP to see if we could have the opportunity to look at all of these central city neighborhoods and those issues. So I don't know where we are with that.
Yeah.
If you know anything, Tim, great. If not, I'll hit up the boss later in the week.
Yeah, I am still working on the narrative for that. Have that out very soon. That's all I can tell you, unless you'd like to look at something related to it.
How long do you think before you have the
I had hoped to have it out by the end of last month.
Right.
And, I'm
Hasn't
on
happened.
reports tomorrow all day, be working on it again Wednesday. So
how close?
Let's go for next week. It'll be RFP form.
That would
Thank
be
you.
great.
Are you getting a copy of the RFP?
We can send it out, but it's,
Yeah.
Sure.
This is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd like to see it after Thanksgiving. Would be
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the Hinkson Creek CAM meeting. They have two people that they need to replace on that commission, which I'm now on. So the Hinkson Creek CAM stakeholder meeting, they need a property owner. They've recommended Scott Hamilton, who lives in that watershed and works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife folks. And then CPS needs a member, and they're recommending Richard Perkins. So I was asked to ask you guys if that was okay with you.
And it doesn't need a vote, it's just kind of that consensus and
Apparently.
feedback.
But
Okay.
they didn't, I said it sounded good, and they said we need the council to say it sounds good. So are you guys okay with that? Perfect.
Sounds good.
No objection to the suggested new members of the CAM.
There you go.
No objection.
So I'm just bringing this along.
Okay.
Next, I just wanted to compliment Parks and Rec. That we had a bunch of stuff, mainly on consent agenda, Cape and Park, Albert Oakland Park, Gans Creek, Grindstone Nature Area, and Bonnie View Nature Sanctuary, all came with matching funds. So I was very impressed that they could stretch our tax dollars out by getting matching funds from somebody else, so I wanted to let them know. I was impressed with how well they did. And then, last but not least, part of the National League of Cities meeting was very interesting. And talking to mayors there, they have trouble getting a quorum for their city council meetings, whereas we're still sitting here at whatever hour this is now. But they have trouble getting a quorum, so they can't get any business done. And I talked to someone else who said they had such rowdy meetings that some of the city council people were escorted out by the police. So I just wanted to thank you all for being respectful and sticking around for the entire meeting. So it's been a pleasure working with you all.
Thank you, Betsy. Do you have any staff comments?
actually I do. And so I'll make it quick so we won't. It's 12:17, so. But I got the opportunity to go with the police department to the Memphis trip. And it was an opportunity for city staff, the police department, some of our educators, and some of our youth to actually go tour the Civil Rights Museum. The conversations that we had on the bus ride up, the conversation that was held on the bus ride back, the conversations that were had just during when people had the opportunity to have dinner and just sit down and talk. It was great. It was one of those things where you really look at how do you really transform a community? How do you ensure that there is this collaboration and this cooperation and this conversation about race, about policing, about what it all means? And, seeing some of our officers actually be vulnerable and actually talk from their heart about how they feel about certain issues, how they feel about certain things, how they feel about their family. It was a great opportunity. And, I'm glad I was able to go. I believe that it is a very important step for our community. And it shows that, despite sometimes where it feels like we're at odds and we don't always agree, that we actually can work together. One of the things that I'm actually going to look at coming up this fiscal year with the upcoming budget to actually budget for this trip on an annual basis.
Thank you, DeCarline. Thank you for sharing that. Nancy or Sheila, anything to add? All right, 12:19. I move to it, or we're adjourned. Not moved in.